and opinions of our advertisers and management of Pacific Telestations Incorporated. You're watching Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. My in-studio guest tonight, none other than our Governor of Guam, Governor Eddie Calvo. Good evening, Governor. How you doing?
Buenas noches. Thank you so much for inviting me in here this evening.
Let me just say, happy birthday, Governor.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's always great. You're another year younger, but anyway, happy birthday again.
My wife told me it's like a fine bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon.
There
it's
you
like
go.
with fine wine, get a little bit more smoother with age.
Like what they say, parmesan. You don't drink no wine before it's time, right? There you go. Governor, let's get right to the topic of this budget, the 2014 budget. Last Saturday, I mean, I watched as a lot of the residents of Guam watched as they supposedly were supposed to deliberate on you calling in the legislature into session to again discuss the budget that you had brought forth to the legislature. Unfortunately, it wasn't discussed. It wasn't the budget. It was a healthcare issue that was being discussed. It looked again very contentious that between the Democrats and Republicans, and again they voted down party line. Are we then at an impasse?
First of all, I want to congratulate the Republicans. They have been moving accordingly, moving forward, trying to focus on the budget, trying to ensure that the rules are followed, that there's transparency, and we focus on the critical issues of the budget. So I want to thank all of the Republican Party, members of the legislature for focusing on that. We felt that things were moving along, and as in my discussions with senators, we felt that there was some bipartisanship and discussions going on between both parties. But again, as everyone realizes over the weekend, it was a total surprise. The budget bill was put aside, and the discussion of the budget was put aside, and again, another political ploy occurred. I'm glad that weekend things have ended. From some of what we're hearing, some positive indicators have come about that everyone is willing now to sit down and talk about the budget again. I want to thank Senator Aline Yamashita for some of the comments that she made. In fact, there was an article in the newspaper, one of the newspapers.
She was at my radio show this morning as well.
For kind of setting the focus on what it should be. All the Republicans have been very good at this. Hey, let's focus on the budget. Remember, the budget is really the single most important function of a legislature. It's setting the policy and budget for the government of Guam for the fiscal year. And you're talking about critical services, and whether it's funding for our hospital and the emergency rooms and medicines and Medicaid, funding for education for our kids in classrooms, funding for police department, for those police cars, fire trucks and ambulances. These are the critical areas that we need to address. So I want to thank them, but also I want to thank some of the Democrats. Just recently, there's been a reach out. I think both Senator Tina Rose Muñoz-Barnes and Senator Rodriguez have sent letters and have communicated with some of the folks within our administration for what are the critical areas that they feel need to be addressed, and the reasons for why they didn't vote for my budget, the administration's budget, and areas and why they think it's so important. So I see a willingness to compromise. And I have to also thank the Appropriations Chair also. We may not have agreed on many things over these past 3 years that I've been governor, but I know that for Senator Pangilinan, his heart is in the right direction. He wants to get things done right. He wants to work for the people. And once some of the political vitriol is eliminated, I think he's willing to work and get to the brass tacks. I can make note that we've made a mutual reach out. We were supposed to meet today, but the senator had a previous engagement, so I anticipate meeting with him tomorrow. And I know Senator Tony Atta has been very, very critical in these discussions, talking to me, talking to Senator Pangilinan, so that we can all come together. So I'm feeling now that cooler heads have prevailed, and now we can get back to the business of the people, and that is focusing on a budget and getting that budget moving.
You know, Governor, I've got to say, in my view, we had the opportunity to serve in a couple of legislatures together, but in my view with this, what you had called them into session for on Saturday and basis and what they had deliberated on instead of what you call them into session for. I think at this point as well. Now, they said they were dealing with the budget based on an insurance situation here, but I think it's a false promise, because supposedly a savings on what is supposed to come from exclusive underwriting of an insurance company, I think it's not going to happen. And my take in this, I think there's going to be a legal challenge, because you have companies out there now that have been communicating with government, the negotiating team, because they were told folks again, the government of Guam will have a choice. So I think now, if we go into exclusivity, I think there's going to be a legal challenge. So supposedly that money that you're looking at savings will probably go into lawyers' pockets.
Yeah, I think that train has left the station long ago. The senators wanted a choice. We have now choice, and we made that decision. There's already been notice of awards that have been given out. I also believe there's going to be tremendous savings from the choosing of different carriers, allowing the workers and retirees to make these choices. But there's still a lot of things that need to be done. There needs to be negotiation. The workers and retirees have to make that choice of not only carriers, but what plans there are. And then, of course, in order to get a true picture in this, you got to see what happens at the end of the year and with the medical loss ratios and what potential rebates will be coming back. So obviously what Saturday was I consider just political gamesmanship, but we all understand that. I think most people do. Now we get back to the brass tacks. Again, it's important. I've made some discussions with Department of Education. We look towards what their requirements are and some of the issues on overcrowding in our high schools. So I've agreed to work with John Fernandez and the Department of Education to give them some additional funding so that they could open a central high school to alleviate some of the pressures. Senator Rodriguez has also made known that some of the issues regarding the hospital and Medicaid. So I think it's important that we also give the necessary funding to ensure that our emergency room doors don't close, and that we have enough matching to funding to fully utilize Medicaid.
Well, one of the things, Governor, that I've read here is one of the things that the hospital, of course, they got to put everything on the table. Is they're looking at possibly looking at 30-bed closure as part of a solution to cut down expenses on GMH. We can't afford 30. We can't afford one, let alone 30 to close down as part of a cost measurement shortfall situation at the Guam Memorial Hospital, and to be able to do that. I mean, we have people waiting in the hallways at this point already, waiting to get into rooms. We don't have we don't have the abundance of room of hospital rooms to say 30. We can take 30 off the line.
Yes, and then that's why this need for dialogue. This need for compromise and consensus. And we received a letter from Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes, Senator Barnes. Again, we've worked with her over these past 3 years collaboratively in many issues. For her, the issue of most concern is the $1,800 for all retirees when it comes to COLA. Obviously, I would love to see that occur. Sure. But we have to look at. I have to look at the full context of what are the requirements of this government, what are the needs of this island community. So we know now what is a critical issue for senators such as Senator Barnes, and let's see what we can do to come together. Some of the critical issues for this administration again is getting the necessary funding for Department of Education, ensuring that we have enough money for the hospital in terms of also Medicaid matching. Police officers, police vehicles out there. You've seen the crime that is occurring in this island. That first budget that was submitted by the Appropriations Chair took some significant cuts on health and safety, and these are areas that we need to come to a consensus with the legislature. Then there's other things that we're adding on that I think are important. There's we put additional funding, not a lot of money, but about an additional $500,000 for hot meals for our manamku. Those folks that are again eligible for the program for the weekends. And we would like to see hot meals being delivered to many of our manamku out there that just do not have the means, do not have the ability to cook on their own, or to have the necessary transportation to eat out.
And more of our manamkus are getting into that. I mean, falling into that predicament where they're able to get food delivered to them Monday through Friday, but then the gap of a Saturday and Sunday.
And this is the battle. I mean, and it's tough because there are so many priorities, and each one of those priorities or each one of these issues are important. But again, here we are. I'd like to see the Hay study fully implemented. I'd like to see COLA given out at 1,800. But we already note, again, listening to the news about some of the shortfalls at the hospital. You see what's happening with the Department of Education. We have these brand new buildings, but we need to have the maintenance of it. We have an overcrowded George Washington High School, so we have to deal with that.
We have more school. We have a charter school. We have possibly 6 more.
Yeah, and I've been talking to some of those folks in the police force. There's a bunch of our police cars, some of our even newer ones, that because of the high rash of criminal activity that are damaged, that are now in a yard that need repairs. So we have to look at the whole context of ensuring that we fully fund, or at least give the necessary resources so that we can have satisfactory services in critical areas of education, health, and safety.
Governor, we'll be right back. Pay some bills. Be right back.